Hey there, guys and gals. Today is my pull day training montage, my calisthenics pull day training montage. So first off, I'll mention the weather again, especially since I'm training outside. Today was one of those days that really made me want, my inside calisthenics gym that I'm currently building. There'll be a complete video on that, later on when I manage to finish it. But that is the thing. I'm a full-time pharmacy student in an accelerated program. It's a 3-year program instead of 4 years, and we go year round. We get about 1 to 3 weeks off in between quarters, and it is just so busy. And then on top of that, I'm working out and I'm making these YouTube videos. There's not really a whole lot of leftover time in the day, because man's got to sleep, you got to rest and recover, and I really struggle to find time, to work on my inside gym. I've got part of it welded up. I've got all the steel cut. I've got part of it welded, but if I had to guess, and estimate, I'm probably 15 to 20% of the way, done with the inside gym project. So I have such a long ways to go, but today really made me want that because it is about 26 degrees Fahrenheit, about -3 degrees Celsius here in Eastern Kentucky, and that's not even the worst part of it. I mean, you can see my hand there. It's losing some color, but that's not even the worst part of it. It's the wind chill. I'm sure the wind chill is very far below zero. And speaking in terms of Fahrenheit as well as Celsius, I have 2 shirts on underneath the hoodie. So I have 3 layers on my torso. I have a beanie on. I have the hood of the hoodie on, and you can see the snow fall there, snow particles falling through the air. It was very pretty outside. It was beautiful, but it did not feel very nice at all. But I'm still out. I'm still training. I'm trying to keep the blood flowing. It's actually, you can actually stay quite a bit warmer, than it first seems. I think what I really struggled the most here with was my hands. I think my face got a little wind chill as well, but my hands and my face was where the issues were that I was having. The rest of me was staying pretty decently warm. I wouldn't say I was comfortable by any means, but I'm up, moving around. I got the blood circulating. My muscles are generating heat, because they're doing work. And anyways, here I'm on my warm up. I'm doing the 6-rep warm up. I'm trying to loosen up, and that was that was a lot more difficult today, where it's so cold. I also think the coldness makes the bands behave a little bit differently. They don't feel like they want to stretch quite as much. So I think when it's cold, the bands are actually a little stronger than they're supposed to be. You'll see later on for today when I done I normally do the weight vest for weighted pull-ups, but today I was going to try the resistance bands, and I think I definitely could have went up a little higher in the difficulty than I did. But the bands that I used still, I think they were a little more challenging than they normally would be on, say, like a hot day, when the rubber is a lot softer. It's just interesting little variables like that you have to consider, for your training. But I'm approaching the end of that warm-up, and we're going to get into some skill practice. So here's some one-arm pull-up. And, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't want to go very hard today because it was so cold out that I couldn't really feel very well, how my body felt, so, I could be straining, pulling, or injuring myself in some way, and, I may not feel it until later when I go inside and warm up. Um, so I tried to be extra careful today to make sure that I was pretty confident in what I was doing, especially with this one arm pull up, because I've had so much difficulties out of my right shoulder. But, I think today went pretty well. I'm inside right now doing this voiceover, and everything feels good. Here I decided to do like 2 bands, and I don't think this went very well. At least it didn't go as well as I thought it would in my head when I was imagining what to do here. It was just like when I done the pull-up, I felt like I lost my balance, like my body wanted to rotate or something at the top. And, even though I had less assistance with only the red band, the movement was actually easier, just from a stabilization standpoint, by just kind of letting go of the orange band there. So I'm not sure if I was just too cold and I wasn't thinking right, or, if I don't need to try this anymore in the future. But here I'm going to try some slow muscle up, and, this did not go, I didn't do a slow muscle. I did get pretty high in that pull up, but there was no way I was doing that transition. And this is the first time I've ever tried this, but I decided I was going to try to use my foot, to help me get around the bar. And weirdly enough, this felt more challenging than without putting your feet on the ground. I'm not sure what the deal was with that. Perhaps I was doing something wrong there. So then I decided I'd try a slow ring muscle up, and in the future, I think I should try this first, before my strength is gone. Because a few years ago, back in the day, I used to be able to do a slow ring muscle up, and, I'm not sure what happened, why I lost it. For some reason, though, I quit training it. I don't know if it was an injury or if, life just got too busy or what, but, friendly advice from one person to the next. When you unlock something, when you unlock a skill, never, ever stop training it at some point during your week. Because once you lose it, and it's gone, and it's just so hard to get back. But here's those weighted pull-ups today. Instead of having that weight vest on, I've got this resistance band, and this isn't my smallest resistance band, but it's the next to smallest. And I think it's still like 10 to 35 pounds. At least that's what they write on it. I don't know how accurate that is, but, regardless, what I love about these resistance bands, and here you can see me with a bit thicker one. I think this one goes like 20 to 65, but what I love about these bands, and I may start, using them more often over the weight vest. And with the weight vest, if you do a really quick pull-up, especially at the bottom, you can build momentum, and the momentum will pretty much take you to the top. But what's really difficult and challenging about using these bands is that they apply constant pressure. It doesn't matter how fast you go through the movement. There's no way that you're really going to build some momentum. At least, you might have a bit of momentum from your body weight, but as far as the band goes, the band is fighting your momentum, and it makes, things like the top portion of this movement so much more challenging. Which from a training standpoint, that's a good thing, because that's going to make you a lot stronger at the top of that movement if you train exercises like that over time. So here I'm trying that one arm pull-up variation that I said I would try. I think that was maybe on skill day. You can see here I didn't quite know what side of the bar to put my head on this first attempt, so ultimately I ended up doing 3 attempts of this. And I think in the future, I may, instead of trying a one-arm pull-up, I may actually try a one-arm chin-up, because I did really like how that felt, especially on the right side, but I'll definitely train it on both sides. But this is so much more challenging than it looks. I'm putting most of the weight on that dominant arm, and I'm just using the assisting arm. Just enough pressure to to keep me in this 90-degree lock-off is what they call it. It's where your dominant arm is bent about 90 degrees at the elbow. You just try to hold that for as long as possible. It's a really good skill to practice, or in this case it's a working set because I'm holding it for time under tension. But either way, it's a really great building block to put in your toolbox. My construction terminology, construction references aren't working out so good, but what I'm trying to say is this is a great thing to try if you're trying to get a one-arm pull-up. It's really great for building that that one-sided, that unilateral strength. I think this is my third attempt. Might be my second, I'm not really sure, but I'm kind of thinking about how the movement's going to go, with no resistance, because if you struggle to do the movement with no resistance, how are you ever going to do the movement with resistance? Actually, I think this is my second set, but this one went a lot better than the first. I had my head on the correct side of the bar, very slow and controlled on the way down, and I'm probably putting 70-80% of the weight on that dominant side. So even though it looks like I'm doing two arms, to do all the pulling, it's actually pretty focused on that dominant arm. So here I'm trying to start the movement. Instead of starting in the middle at that 90-degree hold, I'm trying to start at the top of the movement, and I'm trying to go down as slow as I can. But at this point in time through my workout, I was really feeling the fatigue, and that was honestly about as slow as I could go, without just completely, splitting the resistance 50-50 between the arms, which there's not a whole lot of benefit to doing if you're trying to learn a one-arm pull-up. Okay, so this is my third set. On this one I done the full movement, but instead of grabbing the bar with the assisting arm, I grabbed the dominant arm, just kind of like training wheels, just to give it everything it needs to complete the motion. Here's the stretch out. Start out with a little pullover. Pullovers are pretty fun. It's pretty fun to be able to do that movement. So if you're not quite where you can do muscle ups yet, and you're wanting to do muscle ups one day, look into pullovers. That was something back when I was learning muscle ups. I didn't learn the pullover until after I learned the muscle up, and that wasn't necessarily a choice I had to make. It was just I had never heard of the pullover until after I had learned a muscle up, and looking back on that, pullover I think is a lot easier of a movement to complete than a muscle up. So if I had that to do over and I knew everything I knew now, I would definitely, I'd learn pull up, dip, and then I would go to try and learn pull over, and skin the cat and movements like that. But I would learn the pull over before I learned the muscle up. Here I'm just stretching out, trying to stay warm, trying to stay moving, keep the blood flowing, but I'm trying to kind of let my body relax and loosen up, because the strength training portion of the workout is over, and now I'm just getting into a little bit of flexibility. And if you're big into strength training and you don't train flexibility, like you don't try to do the splits, you don't try to do back bends and things like that, in my opinion, I think you're missing out. I think that's definitely something that you should look into. you know, because it's pretty easy to get flexible when you're younger, but as you get older, it becomes more challenging to get flexible. But if you get flexible while you're young, it's a lot easier to maintain your flexibility, you know, throughout your later years of life. But anyways, I think that's the end of today's training video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please provide me with any questions or comments you may have. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.